Hey guys, so today we are going to be looking at working leads inside of Zoodealio. What are the key things that I'm going to look for? What are the key things that you should be looking for? What are the notifications? And ultimately, how do I convert these leads that are inside of my system? How do I generate them? We'll be talking a little bit about just a couple of top funnel actions, right? Because what this is always been about is casting out a bigger message, right? But then once we cast out that bigger message, a message without conversion is all for naught. So this is 100% about helping you grow your real estate business, meet your clients where they're at, providing instant cash offer solutions. If they like the cash offer solution and it fits that need, awesome. We want to get you to convert that and create that nice, smooth transaction for your client, and then ultimately relist that property on the open market, getting them the remainder of their equity. And then, of course, the other side of that is the overwhelming majority of the leads that you're going to work. The cash offer isn't going to work, and they're going to need to end up putting their house on the market to get the cash that they want. And of course, they're going to count on you to help them get the cash that they want in the time that they want. Key phrase there. So with that said, let's dive in. I'm going to share some slides and we are going to get rolling. So the first thing I want to take a look at today is actually, kind of like our market of the moment. And really, where are we at, right? So when we really look at kind of where we're at, right, being able to generate instant solutions, so many sellers, as we know, are looking to scratch that itch with that instant cash offer. Now, the reason why I think right now is the best time that we've had in probably the last 18 to 24 months is really what's going on in the economy. So I want to kind of take a look at setting the stage. There's a lot of, macroeconomics that have to deal with the real estate sector, right? So now, even though when you look at the overarching economy, the real estate sector is about 30, it's a solid 1/3 to even 35, 36% of the economy is of the flow when you look at how things roll and how it ultimately touches. So many different industries, obviously, in short, real estate is such a wide sector. But rather than talking about like in global point of views, I want to make this a little bit more micro, right? But we first need to understand that macro so that we can deliver the micro, right? Which is your business, your community, your overall production. So what I want to talk about real quick here is, if you haven't heard, this has, I think, become pretty mainstream news with the job reports that came out last week. They were, they were expecting I think 75,000 new jobs, only 22,000 were produced. So it was way off the mark. That with inflation's actually been pretty low. So that's almost kind of like getting more on track. So it is highly likely that the, interest rates in which that the Fed sets and everybody, kind of borrows from, and the way money moves and prime and, those types of things is going to be lowered. Now, that doesn't always mean that interest rates are going to be instantaneously lower in the real estate. However, the spread between the lenders and the Fed has actually already been compressed. That's why we've been seeing the rates already be lower, right? So, kind of getting into the treasury, bond market, all those types of things. I'm not trying to give you guys, an economic lesson here, but if you don't know about these things, it's actually very important to know about them, and a really good understanding around them is going to help you educate your clients and really kind of position your business to know when we need to, slam on the throttle and lay off the throttle, right? Where we're going to be prospecting focused, or maybe even marketing focused, right? Because these are different times to where I can launch a bigger message. And, maybe my spend is a little bit more because I have more production, right? I can afford to blast out my advertisements, afford to spend more, every door direct mail marketing campaigns, et cetera, right? Or do I need to lay off that spend and hammer down on the prospecting, right? Where it's, going to be human capital that my business is now going to be intensive, and I need to pick up the phones. I need to go, kind of go through my leads again, right? All of those types of things. So those are just, like I said, there's ebbs and flows of the market that, you'll certainly hear Kayla talk about and myself talk a lot about. And right now, when we look at what's going on, there is a really solid chance, in my personal opinion, that we're going to see 50 basis point cut, right? We're about to find out here in, I think it's like the 15th-ish is when the cut, it is the 15th, is when the cut is due, right? And so we'll find out if it's going to be 25 or a little greater, right? Now, my personal opinion is they're going to really try to get the economy moving when it comes to real estate, because it just rolls downhill so much. And we all know that it has been massively stagnant, right? You're seeing houses leave the market. So many sellers are canceling, when ironically, right, that's another report that's been coming out, is that they're canceling after 3 months, 4 months, right? We've all now kind of moved into this, we need to sell quick type of mindset. So this is exactly where I want to, give you guys the cheat code that you have, is you're able to genuinely walk in, genuinely make a phone call, genuinely send out marketing material that is going to say that you can provide a guaranteed full market value cash offer. Right now, there's obviously a structure to it, but as far as a marketing message goes, right, there's always terms to any deal, right? There's any terms to any structure, and these are just the terms in which that you guys will be able to deliver. So when we look at these types of things, again, this is kind of a Polymarket piece here. Feel free to go out and check this out. I actually think that this is updated, that the 50 basis points are actually now more like, I think it's like 65% that the Polymarket is predicting that we're going to see a 50 basis point cut. Now, the other thing I want to educate you guys on real quick here on why this is so important for you to take to your sellers is realizing that if we can get that interest rate right around that 6%, right, we're talking about affordability starts to kick in for a lot of people that are on the fence waiting, right? Zillow says that there's basically 500,000 homeowners that are sitting on the sidelines waiting for basically that 6% affordability factor to come in to kick in, right? Because now they can sell their house for probably the price that they want, because buyers are coming in and there's going to be more in demand, and then now the money that they have to go spend on their new house is not as much, right? So you're talking about a couple $100 of savings in most price points across America when we're talking about, going from where we are to where it's going to be, again, depends on the price point, but usually pretty dramatic savings when it comes to that. Okay. So what I want to do real quick here is, who should we be targeting, right? Well, this is exactly, again, for my aggressive agents out there, this is for you, right? So my canceleds, my expireds, even FSBOs, right? FSBOs, this is prime opportunity to where a lot of times people have raised their hand. They were selling their house. The house left the market unsold. So I'm going to go to people that are like 6 months ago, even 90 days ago, right? So now in most MLSs, the day counter will reset after 90 days, right? So now it's going to turn over as a fresh new listing. Well, this is prime opportunity for you guys to do that. And I'm also going to be any one of my listings that left unsold in the last 18 to 24 months, I'm going to be hitting them up and let them know that right now is the time, that there is a lot of forecasting that between now and pretty much the end of summer through next year, that we anticipate that there's going to be a pretty good push. And if all of these rate cuts that are coming into play, the big beautiful bill, the liquidity, ultimately the printing of money that's going to happen, right, is going to be pushed into the economy through loans, right? And so one of the ways that they're going to do that is lower the cost around those things. So again, that's going to create a demand and create an opportunity for them to take advantage of our current market. And of course, you get to be that trusted advisor. And so this is why I'm trying to tool you guys up to plug into this information. This is rather than just telling them right now is great, best time to sell, right? If it doesn't have any substance behind it, it's a lot of times not going to make sense. So I want to give you the substance to go and have these intelligent conversations with your prospects, because these are the kinds of things that are going to set you apart, right? When you have a great tool, when you have a great system, when you have a great track record, right? All of those are fantastic. But when you can intelligently talk about their needs and applying it to their wants, you're winning on all facets, right? And that's what I want you guys to do, is create those raving fans. So again, you're having lots of sources. You have lots of areas that you can hit up. Right now, just a quick little sprinkle in here. With seller source leads, of course, you want to be able to connect to those leads. This is where I really am anxious to see how well these likely seller algorithms have been that we have or executing. Is because now that you have all of these people that have been going to these sites, really trying to look for that moment. Well, now we're about to start seeing it tick up, because that valve, right, is about to get opened and the money is going to start flowing. And so again, these are really cool things to where you're going to be able to now be looking at not only people that are have a canceled and expired, a FSBO, probate situations that we can locate, divorce situations which you can always locate, right? Those are all things that we know, from kind of known sources for seller leads. But now, as we step into the likely sellers that we've been able to create within Seller Source, these are now an additional amazing opportunity, as well as, of course, the ads that are performing and then people raising their hands. So again, I don't want to be too long-winded on that. If you want to check that out, of course, reach out to our team and we can plug you into Seller Source to be able to get solid leads that are vetted flowing to your account. Okay, so I want to take a look now that we kind of set the stage. I teed it up, all of this with you guys here. Let me pivot to a new screen here, and I can get you guys the screens that we need. So the first thing I want to introduce you guys to that I think is underutilized, right? So part of, candidly, guys, let me give you a little bit of, just truth serum from what we do, from a technology standpoint. So there's a lot of heat mapping and, behavior watching that we're able to do from our user base, from, whether it be clients, et cetera, right? So part of one of the magic is what do people watch? What do they engage with? What are they clicking on, right? All of those things. And so one of the things that I've been personally working on is this notification, because I think it's underutilized. So allow me to expand on that, right? So what I'm getting at is I can see, where people are going and what they're clicking on within the application. So one of the things I want you to see here is if we take, like, this is just kind of a test account that I actually do have some live data in my personal account, right, is where I want to go into my notifications, right? And one of the reasons why I want to do that is because this is like real-time information and real-time things that are going on within my prospects, right? So if I have several leads that are in here that let's say that I got a canceled list from Land Voice, last year, and I've been working on them, they're in my home report, or I've been marketing them, whatever that looks like, I'm using the cash offers, right, to where I want to keep them in my nurture cycle, my nurture sequence, so I'm keeping my value proposition in front of them. Well, as you can see here, right, this is just like, real-time information to where 19, minutes ago, I had somebody that had a chat with the AI, offers expired with this particular prospect, Grant here clicked on his home report email, let's see, Raymond here, he viewed another container for a certain amount of time, right? So what I'm getting at here is these are all certain behaviors that are being done for you that you're capturing in real time. So now what I want to do is if I click on this here, right, it's going to pull me to the chat that happened, right? And this is apparently a pretty active lead that's inside the system. Actually looks like it's probably a real estate agent. So what I want to show you guys here, a couple of quick things. So let me click on the home report here, right? So now I can see the behaviors that my lead is actually taking, right? So that's where I want to go down here and see what has he been plugging into in the home report? How long has he been looking at the different offers, the options, so that now when I reach out to Raymond, I can have an intelligent conversation with them, right? I can talk to him about his property on, Whitburn here, and I'm able to reach out to him and say, hey Raymond, this is Eliot. Hey, we haven't had a chance to actually meet yet, but I wanted to reach out to you about your property on Whitburn Street here. And the reason why I've been reaching out is because I see that you're checking out the different cash offer options that are in the home report that we've been sending to you, along with your value and equity. And I just wanted to reach out and see if you had any questions or, around those cash offers, or are you actually thinking about getting a cash offer at some time on your house this year, right? So I want to start that process. I'm going to ask that open-ended question, and then that's where I want to really engage them in that conversation. And then from there, that's where I'm going to pivot, and I'm going to sprinkle into them, be like, hey, I don't know if you're aware, but the Federal Reserve is actually going to be cutting interest rates, and it's highly likely that that's going to impact the real estate market and prices. That's going to bring a lot of buyers back in. And that's potentially going to cause prices in houses prices to either go up or houses to sell faster. And so if you time this right, because you were on the market or because you're looking to potentially sell, right, whatever that is that I have to dig and find, I'm able to apply the solution to what he's potentially looking for. And then even if they're just kind of kicking the tires, right? A lot of thoughts, a lot of everything starts with an inspiration of thought, right? The possibility, the yes, you can kind of mentality. And that's where, again, I want to, kind of demonstrate for you guys, because you want to give them the yes, you can mentality. And then you apply, facts, figures and logic behind it. Well, then you're enrolling them into getting, really getting from where they are to where they want to be, right? And then that's where, again, because we're giving them this information, we're able to build that relationship, right? So that's where we start becoming advisory. We're building the trust. We're getting them to know you. And then of course, by osmosis, and then in that situation, a lot of times they end up liking you, hopefully, right? So that's where, again, I want to give us kind of a real world, how I use the offer dashboard, how we've created it to use and to ultimately build relationships, right? So I'm using this tool to get in front of them and really ultimately start my conversation, have an intelligent conversation, talk to them about their specific scenario, and then I'm going to use some of my macro things that are going on in the world to ultimately have a valid conversation and bring up these things with them. So now what I want to talk about here real quick is using some tools that will help me ultimately start a conversation. So let's say that I got a lead, and like most leads, they're defensive. They want to throw up a wall. They don't really want to talk, very much. Yeah, no, I'm not very interested. Oh, thanks. Yeah, I just was checking out the home report. No, we're not really in the market right now. Oh, I was just getting a cash offer. Not really interested. Yes, I was selling my house, but we're not moving anymore. We're just, price is too much. It just, situations changed, and we're just not interested in. Even if I was going to list, I would use my agent before. They did a great job, and I'm not really interested in meeting any new real estate agents, right? Boom, right? I think I just gave you guys a plethora of objections that, I know I've faced countless times, and you're probably facing on a day in and day out. So let me give you some secret sauce on how to overcome virtually all of those, right? And part of what that's going to do is I'm going to, now lead with, hey, I'm not here to list your house. I'm here because I have a cash buyer that's interested in making you an offer on your house, and I was curious to know if you'd like to take a look and see what that offer is, right? So now, because of that, I went pretty fast there. Let me do that again. So in your offer dashboard, right, something that you all may not know exists is you have, of course, your side-by-side offers here that we all know exist. But when we click on the three dots here, right, you have this PDF button. Now, this is purely designed for, walking into the listing appointment with an offer, a digital PDF offer. Let me restate that. A PDF offer in hand, right? Even though it's digital, you're allowed to, of course, print it, so it's in hand. So here's what that is, right? And this is where I think that it's really important for us to be able to go over this with them, right? I want to be able to kind of articulate the different offers, the options, and kind of gauge their interest in what this is. Now, one of the biggest things that I love to share with people is the fact that, hey, this is a market, a value offer. It's so much so that after the buyer purchases the property, we're going to sell it on the open market. And if it was to sell for more, you would actually get that difference. So it's a guaranteed full market value offer. Now, there are a couple of things that you're going to need to elaborate and explain to them. So let's kind of dive into the first one. The first one is this is a two-structure payout, right? They're going to get about 70 to anywhere from 65 to in today's current reserve and climate right now, real estate climate. They're getting anywhere from about 65 to 70%, 75% of their equity right now. Right? Then they're going to get the balance after you list and resell that property on the open market. Now, what really makes this so unique and is such a gift for so many homeowners is, number one, they get their cash now. Number two, they get to get out, and all their stuff gets to get out, right? So now we get to freshen up the property, make sure it looks primed and ready. And number three, if it's a property that qualifies for a rehab and improving, well, now they have the option to improve the property so that it sells for more, right? They don't have to swing a hammer. They don't have to deal with contractors. They don't have to pay the contractors, right? All of those, dealing with all of that rigmarole that always goes on, that expertise that you have to have is all done for them, and they get the benefit of all of it. So it's a really cool option to really, again, kind of start the conversation and really get a lot of things going and separating yourself and again, get that inspirational thought going for these homeowners. So here's the one thing I really want to just kind of boil this down to. So I was talking to somebody this past weekend that knew me as a business person, but was unfamiliar with really the models and how it works. And we were talking about like cost, and they're like, well, so what is really the difference, and why wouldn't what would be the challenge really? And it's like, well, hey, oftentimes it is a math problem, not a word problem when it comes to real estate. And really what you're looking at, what this costs from selling your house traditionally, is really the program fee. So this program fee is for convenience and certainty. You're able to exchange moving when you want, unlocking your equity now, right? So this is just, you're getting a primo service, all for a simple program fee, right? Which is a convenience fee. And when we really break this down, I think sometimes agents look at this as, it can be very, I think that sometimes it's not explained correctly, in short is what I'm saying. So when we look at this, right, guys, I want all of us to realize that really at the end of the day, when we sell our house traditionally, right, and especially if they have the hurdles of too much stuff. They've lived there for 10 years. It could really use a freshen up. It's a house that could really benefit some rehab, right? These are all options that you're able to now bring to them for simply a program fee, right? And so again, this is just, again, an opportunity that I want to make sure that all of you guys are leading with, that when the dust settles, there is one difference with this is the actual program fee. But the one part I want us to be able to articulate clearly is if it is like the many houses that are out there where there's a lot of stuff, it's well lived in, a lot of times that program fee ends up, working itself out or being a heck of a lot less than a 6% because we're solving so many other problems over here of getting them out of the property, accessing their cash now, right? Being able to move confidently, and they're not there's not the stress of selling my house, boarding my dog, moving my kids, around because we have such busy lives, right? All of those types of things that go on, this solves so many problems. Okay. So I want to let you know that this is a great way to, really kind of start a conversation. Now, what I would do in this, let's take a step back, and let's say that you got a lead here that you've been working, and it happens to be a hot lead like Raymond here. So Raymond, I talk to him and I say, hey, I got a cash offer for you. Hey, I need to verify condition of the property before I can deliver the cash offer to you and let you know what those are. Hey, in order for me to verify condition, I need to come by, snap a couple pictures of, some of, the water heater, the ACs, things like that, to make sure that I get this over to the buyer as they make it a prerequisite to finalize the offer to verify the condition of the property, right? So now you pop by, you have a conversation, you take your pictures, right? You can 100%, give them a range, which a lot of times I'm going to do to give them a feel for what's going on. I'm gonna say, hey, just so you know, it looks like the, preliminary offer that we're looking at here is ranging anywhere from $650 to $750 for your particular home. Out of curiosity, do you have a number? Have you looked at the value of your property? Is there a number that you're certainly trying to achieve, right? And then from there, I'm going to ultimately, a lot of times, sometimes I'll say, oh, just get me the most money possible, and then I'm going to say, okay, cool. Well, let me ask you real quick. Do you have a mortgage on the house, or do you own it free and clear? Oh, no. I got a mortgage. Okay. Well, and what happens to be the balance on that? Oh, well, why do you need to know that? Right. Because a lot of times when you ask that question, sometimes they're going to think that you're fishing and you're trying to ultimately, kind of, FUD the numbers, right? You got to remember, they're going to still be very defensive in that scenario, right? And this is where I'm going to use them and say, hey, part of one of the things that we're going to do is we want to make sure that as we go through this process, when we make offers, that the property is going to be, in a good equity position. There's times that we buy, when we go in and make offers on this, there's houses due to, some child support liens and other things that are going on that is above their mortgage, that it doesn't end up working out. So again, we just want to make sure that we're setting you up for success. So again, we're going to get you the utmost money possible. And then that's where I'm going to pause in that situation, let them know, hey, just so we're clear, this Cash Plus program is actually a guaranteed cash offer, a guaranteed full market value cash offer. How we're able to guarantee that is so much so that after your house is purchased by the cash buyer, we're going to resell it. And if it was to sell for more than their cash offer, they will actually give you the additional equity, the open market would bring. Oh, well, why would they do that? How do they make money? Well, I'm glad that you asked. So this is a different type of cash offer where they're not trying to buy it as low as they possibly can because they're going to make all the money on the open market. Now, we are going to try to sell it for as much money on the open market, but this is, what we call those is, spreads or margin-based offers, right? Where they're going to make all of that spread from the acquisition to the resale. This is a fee-based offer where they have what's called a program fee, right? And why that's a benefit to you is now for utilizing these services, you get to make all of the upside. And so part of what they do is it's more of a volume-based acquisition model where it's just for a fee, right? So I think a lot of times when we start to tee up and deliver it like that, it's a game changer, right? So part of one of the things I want to just really implore you guys to do is to be of service, to be fiduciary, use the product of the offer, use the technology, the platform to draw them in, to meet them, to get to know them, use the product to pique their interest, right? Like think about it. Here's how I always like think about it, right? Walmart is your platform. Everything that you go to Walmart for is your product that you meet your consumer, right? So if the consumer's there for clothes, Cool. Talk to them about clothes. If the consumer's there for sporting goods, cool. Talk to them about sporting goods. If the consumer's there for food, cool. Talk to them about food. Right now, hopefully you guys follow my metaphor that I'm using here. But at the end of the day, I want to implore you guys, right, to be practitioners and again to meet your prospects ultimately where they're at. Okay. So I know, and just, I'm sure you guys can tell right now, none of this is scripted and it's, just kind of free flow. So if you have questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. If there's something that you want me to re-go over, again, this isn't scripted, but it is scripted in the fact that it's ingrained in me. So again, if, like I said, feel free to drop any questions that you have in the chat. If you guys are following along for me, just so I know, please throw me a thumbs up in the chat as well. All right, so cruising along here. One of the other things I want us to do in pivoting to the listing, right, is I'm going to exhaust all cash offer options, because if it's an expired, a canceled, a FSBO, or any type of lead, if I'm leading with that cash offer, I don't want to make a liar out of myself, any whatsoever, right? Because it's all about having confidence. It's all about building trust with your prospect. And so what I need to do is I need to provide all cash offer options to them. I'm going to, talk about the differences of each offer. I'm going to ultimately try to find what their needs are. So for example, if I find out that it's a divorce situation and one of the parties wants to lease back the property for up to 6 months, but if they could cash out one of the, the other partners and they can move on and start to go on with their life, then that's a huge benefit, guys, right? So that, again, these are where I want us to apply the different offerings and be a problem solver for our prospects, because we're ultimately going to be able to meet and convert our clients at a much higher level when we are being fiduciary, right? I'm digging too deep, right? That's one of the things I used to always do is, oh, tell me why this is important. Tell me a little bit more about that. And then even a second time after that, I kind of, hey, we want a 4-bedroom house. Oh, well, tell me why we want a 4-bedroom house. Oh, we're expanding and, the family's growing, et cetera. Okay, the family's growing. Tell me a little bit more about that. Are you guys trying to have another kid? What does that look like? Yes, actually, my wife's, 10 weeks pregnant, right? Like, so that you're going to be able to have these types of conversations to where it's really just, kind of helping you out. Okay. So let's see here. Let me move along. Okay. One other quick thing. So going back into like our scenarios that we were running when I'm meeting with my client or my prospect and converting my lead, right? I'm going to let them know that when I have, after I submit the property for a finalized offer, it's going to go through an underwriting process. And that underwriting process can take up to 3 business days, right? Now, in the event that anytime that you guys have this and you need to reach out, feel free to always go into your site right here. I'll show you guys right now. I can click on this chat right here in the bottom right-hand corner. I can click on department, right? And right now I want to go into offers, and that will pull me up right there. So as you can see, it looks like, I know we have a couple people that were out sick today in support, right? So you'll see that that's why they're offline. I got to tell them to get it online. But anyway, the offers team right there, you can come and click on offers right there, and that will pull you up to a live chat, and you'll be able to get some of the support that you need. And I tell you that in the event that, let's say that you got a hot lead and you just went and met with them and you want to expedite the offer and you're hoping to get it within a 24-hour period, you can go in there and request and see if they're able to provide that for you. And if it's a mainstream property, we should be able to do it. Just as an FYI, one of the times that it could take a little longer with some of the underwriting is if it's a property that's a larger lot, the population density is less, some of the comps are more of a tough area. So when that happens, feel free on your end as a local expert, right, to kind of speed up that process. Even if you want to do a quick comp analysis yourself, feel free to send that in for the offer to the offers team so that they can kind of get your analysis as well. Of course, they're always going to pull their own comps. They're always going to do their own due diligence, but just as an FYI, I want to kind of throw you guys out a pro tip of what you could do. Okay, so moving along here, I see I got a couple questions in the chat, and I will pop to those here in just a second for everybody. All right, so here's what I want to, the golden tip I want to give everybody, right? So part of the reason why I have to drill down on what they're looking to get from a successful move, right? So, hey, after you buy, so let's say that they are being very, very guarded before, like, hey, we've done other deals to where they didn't work out because there was a child support lien, a tax lien, a IRS lien, right? Whatever, right? There's a second mortgage that they were unclear on, et cetera, right? I need to let them know that the cash offer, that the way that the structure works, we have to be able to, pay off all liens on the property. right? Then I want to get really clear on the cash that they need to put in their pocket. So let's say that they've kind of been guarded around that whole thing, and they're doing it because they're trying to protect their information. So now I'm going to pivot and say, hey, after you get this house sold, where is it that you plan to go next? Oh, well, we actually have a new build, or it's due to be done in 6 months, or we're upgrading, or we're moving across the city, right? Whatever they're going to go next. A lot of times, data says about 60% of the time they're also going to buy another property, like virtually instantaneously, right? If they are a homeowner. So we want to, then from there, I'm going to use that to say, hey, are you looking to put 20% down, 30% down, right? On that price point, what price point are you shopping in? Right, because now it gives me a really kind of clear indicator on the cash that they're needing to put into their pocket, right? Case in point, and we'll use this scenario here. If there's we have a $709,000 cash offer, their first payout in this scenario is $521. Let's say that they have a $250,000 mortgage, $300,000 mortgage. They've lived there for 10 years, right? Been through a good equity boom, and they're going to get a fair amount of cash, but they want to make sure that, that they're going to be moving to an $800,000 house, and they need, or $900,000 house, or upgrading, and they want to put 20% down, right? So this now is going to allow me to make sure that the cash that they're going to get is going to suffice to the needs of their new property. Well, let's say that in the event that the cash that they're going to get falls short of that, right? I'm going to, a lot of times uncover that and say, hey, it looks like in order to comfortably move, you need to put about $180,000 in your pocket for the 20% down. Is that correct? Yeah, that's correct. And just so I'm clear, you're planning on that down payment coming from the equity of your house, or do you have cash saved up? Do you have some other money that you're going to use for that? No. I need it to all come from the equity of this house. Okay, fantastic. Right. So then I'm going to go to work and and say, hey, I want to make sure that I get you the highest initial cash offer possible. Keep in mind, you'll always capture the rest of your equity because the house is going to be sold on the open market. But I want to make sure that we get you as much cash as possible, right? So that's the whole point of it, guys. By giving them the information, giving them the structure when you're there in front of them, you're going to lower their guard, okay? So then from there, let's say that I go to the cash, I go and get a finalized offer. And let's say that in this scenario, because it happens sometimes, the finalized offer comes in at $685 or $695, $690. Right. So now that the offer actually went down in this scenario, you go back to the underwriting team and say, hey, I was cutting it pretty close to before. Is there any way that we could get the offer up on the initial payout? No, unfortunately, the comps in the area are showing that, hey, marketing time is going to be a solid 120 days. And unfortunately, this is the best that the buyer is currently willing to do. Okay. Well, now we at least know the scenario, and I can go back to my client, my prospect, and say, hey, unfortunately, I went back to the buyer, and based on the current conditions of the market right now, it's looking like the resale of the property, right after they acquire it, it's going to be about 4 months to get the property sold. And so when they do that, the reserve is a little bit higher, and what that does is, that's the amount of your equity that's held back and not realized until we resell the property. And so that would put your payout at, roughly $500,000. And it looks like that's going to put your cash in pocket at about $150,000. So I wanted to just ask you, because this does give you the straightforward, allows you to move forward instantly with a sale, like we talked about. Is that an amount of cash that would work in your pocket to move comfortably? No, unfortunately it's not, right? They say, et cetera, whatever that looks like. This is where the pivot comes into play. Hey, well, I thought that might be the case from our previous conversation. So let me ask you a question. If I could get you all of your equity and I could do it for you in that 120 days, is that something that we could work with? Because I know you have your new build situation that's about 6 months out, so we would have to get started sooner than later. Yeah, tell me a little bit more about that. Yeah, so 120 days, right, is going to be the marketing time in which that we believe that we could get your house sold. And it looks like, per the comps that I'm looking at, we should be able to sell your house for a solid $695 to $700. Now, here's what we need to do to make that happen, right? And when I say what I need to do to make that happen, I'm not going to go into too much of the role play on that, because what I want you guys to do there, of course, is how are we going to position the property, right? How am I going to declutter, right? All of those things that you need to do to make sure that the property shines and is ready to be on the open market. But as you can see from a math standpoint, I just walked you guys through on how to use the offer dashboard to build a relationship, to use the tools, to really convert the lead and ultimately put yourself in a ridiculously high quality home selling conversation. Okay, so let me open up the chat here. Stop my share. Do me a favor. Like I said, if you guys got value out of that, please give me a thumbs up. Drop it in the chat, whatever that looks like. Of course, I'm always looking for feedback. If that was terrible and you don't think I would ever convert, feel free to tell me that too. Okay. Jesse says, let's see, I'm in underwriting and send a finalized offer back to the property. That's looking for closure in October. I'm a realtor in Knoxville. Okay. Jesse, so I'm glad that, thank you for volunteering this. So Jesse, who is a realtor in Knoxville, my sister just moved there, and my best buddy just moved back from Knoxville. I was actually just out there a couple months ago. Okay. So let's see, he's got a property in foreclosure on October 1st. So that's pretty quick. We can move quickly, right? A lot of times if you have an offer that can stay the sale, a lot of times if you have a contract that you can present to the bank that's going to fully satisfy them, a lot of times they'll stay the sale. If for some reason you present that offer and they're not willing to stay the sale, we can move as quick as we possibly can. If you want, Jesse, on that, just because this is a unique situation, I'm happy to have the team call you right after this. Because typically we can close as fast as 21 days. I know we've been quoting 28 just because with inspections and just the bog down of the market, we want to be able to meet the expectations or go faster than. So again, in certain scenarios, we can hit a 21-day close, which would butt us up right against the time frame that you have there. But again, I'm happy to help you, reach out to you, have a conversation with you on staying that sale, especially if we can satisfy that entire first mortgage that is the foreclosing person or foreclosing entity. 100%. So do me a favor, since you brought this to my attention, would you email me eliot@zoodealio.com this property? Just because I can take a look at it and look at the thresholds and all of those types of things as well. And the other thing too, Jesslyn, is this is a partnership, right? Even though it's a membership type situation, it's also a partnership. You're the one that gets hired by the buyer to list and sell the property, right? So you will be employed by the buyer after this. So we want to make sure that we can, hit these things, and we trust you is what we're getting at. That's the whole point of how this platform is designed. And the reason why I'm being this long-winded and saying this is, if you can have some due diligence and you take a look and be like, hey, this thing should sell in less than 60 days, 90 days, no problem. Here's the data that says so. Well, we can go to work with that, right? You said you got stuck at one other point, is when the offers change. So when you get that far, so first of all, let's address two things. So number one, you have the instant preliminary offers, right? So this will be good for everybody that's still on here. You have the instant preliminary offers, which is the AVMs, right? So that's just an instant generated offer that is computer data, right? And then algorithms that are ran that we've built off of that. Certain parts of the country, it's very accurate. Certain parts of the country, we're working on it to get more accurate. Then it goes underneath in a review process. That's where a human will come in. They'll review. That's basically an appraisal that happens on the property, which is why it takes a couple of days for them to